Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a very interesting project here. It's a 2014 Ram 1500. Got the 5.7 Hemi. Customer reported that the stability light, traction control light came on a few days ago. Said about a month ago, and he said his brakes acted weird for 1 or 2 days, and then he said technically they acted sketchy. But the interesting thing is this. Watch what happens with the steering wheel. Isn't that cool? And it'll just sit there and do that. Now you can stop it. You can stop it. But if you just give it a little motion, it starts into this. It actually gets pretty aggressive. You can see the steering wheel back and forth. It's good for checking tie rod ends without a helper. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a built-in tie rod checker feature. Maybe we'll suggest that as a service procedure. I've never seen anything like this. I've seen them turn all the way one direction when you start it up because of a centering spool valve or something like that. But this is electric power steering. So first and foremost, we're going to see if there's any help from any computers in this thing. We'll put the scan tool on it and scan it. Like I said, that is neat. Vehicle history. This is the one I want. Scanner. Automatic ID. It is a 2014. Display fitted systems. Let's do a code scan. I'm doing it running with the engine idling. O2 sensor issue. Steering wheel position sensor signal amplitude. Steering wheel position sensor signal compare failure. Multi-axis acceleration sensor signal compare failure. Left reverse light, center stop lamp. Battery voltage above threshold for the electric power steering. Battery voltage below threshold. Those are history. Implausible data received from ABS. Yet the ABS didn't have any codes. Oh yeah, it did. Steering angle position sensor codes are in the ABS. Integrated trailer brake module and implausible data received from the ABS. Okay, so what I think is of concern here are the steering angle sensor codes. The battery voltage high and low codes are kind of secondary in my opinion. Okay, so I've got a record of all of these. I'm not concerned about freeze frame data. So I'm going to clear all the codes, but that has to be done key on, engine off. So we're going to do a all code clear. And Chrysler requires that it not be running when you do this. It's fairly quick. I haven't put a battery charger on it just yet, but I probably will. Curious if any of those steering angle sensor codes come back. No codes. Okay, I'm going to try and operate the power steering with it not running and see what it does. Because this is electric power steering. Oh, there's no assist. There's no assist unless it's running. Well, there it goes with its hocus pocus again. Checking for codes again. No codes, yet the steering wheel is wobbling back and forth like it was before. Let's look at data. That's interesting. The steering angle sensor is not in this data list. The steering is doing what it was doing before. The only evidence is the voltage switching, changing slightly because of the load the power steering gear is putting on it. Isn't that special? Well, I'm going to look around. So I'm in the electric power steering and looking for codes in it. No codes. Looking at data now. You can see the assist torque. Electronic power steering, internal filtered steering rate, steering angle. It's going from 180 to 220 degrees. Can delta steering wheel angle from negative 100 to positive 150. From negative 150 to positive 150. That's interesting. Must be fun to drive this car, this truck. See if it said any codes. No codes. Let's see if it said any codes in the ABS. No codes. Well, I'm going to do some research and see if I can find any cases of this. So I'm doing some research on identifics for the C0051 for the steering angle sensor implausibility code. And I see lots of cases, no cases of it doing what it was doing with the steering wheel going back and forth on its own, but lots of cases of this sensor being, this code being set because the vehicle was in an accident. And I see the front bumper on this thing is pretty bent up. Doesn't look too recent though. The other thing I noticed strange now is I've got the key off. I've got a clean battery charger on it. And I walk past the vehicle and the dash lights are going on and off and the radio display was going on and off. There it goes. And the key is sitting on the seat. And it's recognized the door is, I open the door, the interior light comes on. Unless the key, the wireless, well, whatever. That's, you never mention anything about that, but I don't think that's right. Don't have any, the ignition key is sitting on the seat here. Or is it? Thought I took the seat, no, I put it back in the ignition. Okay, keys out of the ignition. There's some weirdness going on here. I wonder if it's related. This vehicle doesn't need a mechanic, it needs a priest. So I'm looking at power steering data right now, key on, engine off. I was curious as to whether or not the steering angle sensor was changing on its own, sitting still, like it was when it was turning back and forth, but does that cause or effect? The steering wheel is centered and the steering is straight ahead and it's at 184 degrees. I would expect it to be at 0. Interesting thing is over here it says can steering wheel angle degrees 184. Now it is flipping back and forth from 183 to 184, but I don't think that's enough. But why isn't it 0? I'm going to do some more research. So now I'm looking at data in steering column module, and there is a data parameter here called delta steering wheel angle, and it's at 0. And then there's another data parameter called steering angle sensor, or steering angle in degrees, and it's at 183.5. And again, the steering wheel is centered from what I can tell. Then there is a steering angle sensor overrun, plus or minus, greater than or less than 900 degrees, and that says false. Let's see what happens when I start this and turn the wheel all the way one direction and the other. Turning to the left. That's all the way left. That's all the way right. And that's roughly centered. Now they don't like the fact, let's see what this did. The steering angle went from negative 368 to plus 736. But why is it out 180 degrees where it is right now? Did somebody have 180 degrees is half a turn. I wonder if somebody had the steering column out of this thing and put the steering shaft back together, because I think the steering angle should be at 0 when the wheels are straight ahead, not 170 degrees, 180 degrees. I'm going to try and find out from the customer. So after turning the wheel all the way to each extreme, it's reset this C005122. I'm looking in Snap-on Troubleshooter as to what the code setting criteria is. It says if the anti-lock brake system module detects sensor over travel over 720 degrees, possible causes are steering wheel alignment, steering column and intermediate shaft improperly installed or damaged, steering angle sensor loose, clock spring, anti-lock brake system module. Well, I looked underneath the steering, or underneath the dash of the steering shaft, and that shaft can only be installed in one location because it has a pinch bolt and it has a cutout in the shaft for the bolt. I tried to loosen it and turn it 180 degrees, but you can't. And the other end of the shaft underneath in the engine bay looks like it hasn't been tampered with. I can't get a hold of the customer, so I'm going to do a little bit more research, but it's looking like it's going to need a steering angle sensor, but it seems odd that it's out 180 degrees, which is half a turn. So here's the troubleshooting steps from the manufacturer. Basically, it tells you to turn the steering wheel lock to lock and see if it resets the code, which it did. And then it says, turn the steering wheel so the wheels point in a straight ahead position with the scan tool. Read the steering angle. Is the steering angle reading within 15 degrees of 0? If not, go to 5. Check clock spring installation. Verify the clock spring is installed properly. I got to find out what the repair history is on this truck, because it seems like it's out 180 degrees. I'm certain that if we replace the steering column control module, which will probably need to be programmed to the vehicle, that's going to fix it. But if it's just an installation procedure, it could be installed correctly, I would think. So I did a bunch of research last night, searched all over the internet for information on why this steering angle sensor is 180 degrees out. Talked to the customer, and there is no previous repair history. Steering column hasn't been out, steering shaft hasn't been disconnected, steering gear hasn't been worked on, wheel alignment hasn't been performed. I'm at a loss. I did find a couple of videos on YouTube, and one fella demonstrated a procedure to disassemble the clock spring and take the steering angle sensor out of it and resync it. When I asked him why it was out of sync in the first place, he said because of an internal failure of the power steering rack and pinion. And he couldn't really elaborate, or didn't really elaborate. That doesn't make any sense. To me, it doesn't anyways. Now, I found a case where it said to relearn the steering angle sensor position. And I'm in the ABS module under functional tests, ATM tests and bleed brakes, and miscellaneous functions, brake pedal calibration, ECU information, and initialize ECU. So it's not there in that module. And if I go into the steering column control module, where the steering angle sensor is, under miscellaneous functions, just has ECU information. And under power steering system, under miscellaneous functions, it just has clear steering pull compensation. So I'm going to try the Think tool, scan tool here, to see if it has any more capabilities. So we're going into Intelligent Diagnostics with the Think Tool Pro here. Should auto ID. That is correct. Quick access. Okay, so let's try in the ABS. Special functions. Now I have the steering wheel centered right now. ABS, bleed brakes, initialization, pedal calibration, check bin, actuation tests. No, that's the ATM tests. Okay, so it's not in the ABS module. Steering column control module, let's try that. So I just got off the phone with the dealer. Almost $1,100, but imagine that they have it in stock. So I think we're gonna attempt a repair, as I saw demonstrated by that one fellow on YouTube. I don't think we have anything to really lose. I can't understand why it would go out of sync in the first place. We have to pull this airbag and steering wheel off and the steering column covers off. So first the covers come off and then the release for the 3 ears on this airbag. There's 1, 2, 3, but you have to turn the wheel and you have to go from behind. So let's get this apart. So there are 2 7mm screws on the bottom of the knee bolster, and then a bunch of plastic clips that pull it straight towards the driver's seat. Then there are 3 screws, 1 up through here and 2 up here, and they're different. So the odd one is the bottom screw, and the longer ones, you need a T20 screwdriver to remove those. And that should separate this cover. Take the 2 pieces of the cover, tilt the steering wheel down. So once you get the steering column covers off, you can access the 3 releases. Let's see, there they are there, looking at them with the borescope. It's hard to see. Got a little wire there. So there's one at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. So you have to turn the wheel so that the 10 o'clock position is at 12. And then you have to go in there. They show it's a special little hook tool, like a small screwdriver. So I'm going to try. I'm not sure which way it has to be pried. It's hard to tell by looking at it. Well, I'm not going to lie, that was frustrating. Took me like 40 minutes to get those 3 releases. These are the ears and they have to be pried away from the tabs towards the outside. So I found the best thing to work was about a 6-inch long, 3/8 wide screwdriver. Go in like so and turn it 90 degrees and use a mirror to look in the back of the steering wheel. Disconnect the battery before doing this, by the way. Well, you would think I would be able to just pull the steering wheel off, but they obviously have some kind of 2-jaw puller that fits in these 2 holes. I have a small puller, but it won't go in those holes. I put a bolt in here with a center punch hole drilled in it, and I used the air hammer while I pulled up on the steering wheel, and it didn't budge. At least it doesn't look like it moved. I also marked it with a felt marker, just in case there's no master spline on it. I'm going to see if I can figure out some kind of puller. So I modified the jaws on my little puller here, and I took a 8mm bolt and drilled a center hole in it. And I'm still having difficulty. This thing is not coming off. Well, when I was about to give up, it finally came. Tapping on the puller when there's pressure on it. And yet the splines, there's a master spline on here. I did mark it, but there's a master spline on here by the looks of it. Now there are 2 T20 screws that hold this steering column control module, clock spring, signal light switch assembly in, and the several electrical connectors on the bottom of it. We're going to disconnect those. So the dealer services this thing as a complete assembly. this is the actual steering angle sensor right here, and it's driven off a little gear on the clock spring. When the clock spring is centered, I've taken it off with the steering wheel straight. This flat is parallel to this flat here. We're going to remove these two little torque screws here. I think they're T5s or something like that. They're very tiny. And then we're going to plug the steering column sensor into the steering column connector, this one here, and read the angle while we readjust this. See if we can't get it back in sync. Well, those are T10 screws with a safety Torx bit. And I have a kit that I bought on Amazon a few years ago, but I see what's caused the problem here. This little sensor is gear driven off of these teeth here, and the plastic teeth are worn. That's the steering angle sensor, this piece right here. And there's no point me trying to re-index this because the teeth are worn out. You can see the plastic material in there. So for the sake of a 5-cent piece of plastic, we got to put in an $1,100 part. Well, I'll drive to town and get the new part. I just hope it fixes the steering wheel shimmying back and forth. I might try and recenter this just for the sake of it, but I can't see why that steering wheel is wobbling back and forth like it is. So I've got the steering angle sensor by itself plugged in, and I'm reading 162 degrees. I've got the key in the on position, and I'm going to rotate this sensor . I'm trying to see it. 146 degrees. $129 degrees. $99 degrees. $53. Should really put the scanner in the truck so I can see this. $14. -5 degrees. Okay, I'm going to go back just a little bit. $3 degrees. Okay, that's -1 degree. Disconnecting it. I was thinking of just putting it back together temporarily and clearing all the codes and see if that steering wheel anomaly is resolved. I'm going to put a mark on here. That's poor quality control. We'll put this back together. So it's back together with the steering wheel just sitting on there, and the steering wheel is approximately centered, and it's at 5 degrees positive. Now I know it's not going to work, but theoretically now, if that was the implausibility was causing the steering gear to overcorrect, it should be okay now. That's a shame that that little plastic gear wears out in there. That's why they have it in stock, but geez. I'm going to have an airbag code because I still have the airbag out of the steering wheel. Okay. Well, let's start it and see what it does. Well, I don't see how changing that clock spring steering column module is going to fix that. That's got to be a problem in the steering gear itself. I mean, you got power steering assist in both directions. It's like it's overcorrecting. Let's try that calibration again. Well, this is the only calibration that I can see. It says clear steering pull compensation. Whenever a vehicle alignment is performed, make sure your wheels are pointed straight ahead and wheel centering using alignment equipment. Yeah, okay. That was pretty simple. Didn't say whether it had to be done key on engine running or key on engine off. Let's do a network code scan and see what we've got. I know we'll have an airbag code and a tail light code, I believe. High mounted brake light, O2 sensor code. Squib. No codes in the power steering, no codes in the instrument panel. No codes in the ABS. Let's see if this thing is still doing this hocus pocus. Well, we know it needs a steering column sensor, steering column control module for that steering angle sensor, but it's not going to fix it. So I talked to a tech at the dealership that I know quite well, and he's very knowledgeable, and he's never actually seen this anomaly with the steering, but him and I both agree that the problem is likely a torque sensor or something in the steering gear itself. Now, he suggested to do this initialize ECU in the ABS module, which I did, which clears a whole bunch of learned memories, and I did that. So we're going to try it again. I'm going to start it now and see what it does. So again, that was in the ABS module that I did that initialize ECU. Nope. Let's turn the wheel 180 degrees, 360 degrees. That's got to be a problem in the steering gear itself, in my opinion. There's got to be some kind of torque sensor, unless, and it does it no matter where you put the steering wheel. Like if I turn the steering wheel almost full left, it'll do it there. If I turn the steering wheel, and I don't feel any binding in the steering shaft, like the U-joint's not binding. So it's got to be an internal problem in the gear. I phoned the salvage yard, asked a buddy at the salvage yard if they have any steering gears. He says they're like gold. But he's checking.